Welcome back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
I'm Luke.
It's the end of the year podcast, or just about, and I think we should probably take a minute at the front of the show to tell everybody that 2026 nuke sales are available. If you're an existing beekeeper and you're looking to expand next year, or you think you're going to need some replacements because you're going to have some winter die-offs, and you're in the central Illinois area, reach out. We're going to have our nuke sales again. They went really well this year, and we're planning for some more next year.
Order form is currently up. It's on Riverview Road, Apiary. Just look for the giant, awesome-looking nuke with bees boiling out the top of it. It's right there on the page. Super easy to order. They'll be delivered around second week of April.
Mid-April, probably.
Mid-April,
give or take. And
by delivered, I mean you come pick them up. At the
we'll have acquired them by then. And with that commercial, our own commercial out of the way, it has snowed, sir.
A lot of snow, although not as much as they were calling for. But it is cold.
Property, we got like a solid 6 to 8, and then 2 days later we got another solid 2 inches. And then, unlike normal years where if you get an early December snow, it's 45 degrees a week later, it has been a solid not above 25 and lows in the single digits multiple times, and the snow is still around, sir.
And snowed a few more times too, even though they're kind of flurries.
Yeah.
But yeah, still a few more times other than that.
So winter has arrived in earnest. I think all of my pink insulation foam donuts that I had laying around put on hives.
I did not.
I mean, all the ones I have. Not all of my hives got wrapped.
Yeah, I got a few of them on.
I had intended to buy a few more wraps, cozies.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I suppose there's nothing preventing me from continuing to do that still.
I don't know how much good it does post freezing cold.
I think because our weather warms and colds throughout the winter time. Like there's going to be 50-degree days.
Oh yeah,
50 and 60-degree days.
And the hard part of this season here isn't right now.
No,
the hard part is February, where it's
so because of that, I think there's still value.
Okay, I can be talked into that. Yeah,
because theoretically, if I put it on now, like even after our first snow, theoretically, if it does add insulative value, which it should, then they shouldn't have to burn as many calories to keep the hive warm.
Agreed.
And the fewer calories they burn, the more resources they have, et cetera, without having me.
Well, going into like some beekeeping biology, we've talked about this before, but 40 degrees outside is the ideal metabolic temperature for honeybees. That is the rate. That's if you look at they have graphs of how much energy they burn, and at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, they are burning the least amount of energy. They go into a hypertrophy state. And so if any of the people out there have weather controls, you can set the thermometer to 40 degrees. I'd be real happy.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, it's probably 15 degrees out right now or something like that.
Well, I was just at the Christmas Village this last weekend.
Doing another fall Christmas show, craft show thing for sales, honey sales.
Year 4 of me doing this.
Yep.
And it was exceptionally cold. My nose was cold. My honey actually froze, which is another little tidbit of information we can share, is that if you have extra honey and you have it in bottles and you're just not going to get to it quickly, you can throw it in the freezer. It slows that crystallization process, basically stops it, and freezes it and keeps it fresh. So there you go. Don't store if you're not going to eat it quickly, just throw your honey in the freezer.
I mean, it's a little hard to get it out of the freezer and put it on some toast in a timely manner.
It is, but you got to plan ahead for that portion. But once you run out of the bottle that's currently in your cabinet, then
that's when I go to my bee supplier and I buy another bottle.
Yeah, well, you're gonna buy 3 or 4 just because bee suppliers are running low this time of year.
Maybe, or they have several 100 pounds sitting in the kitchen and going, it's the holiday season when I have people over and we're making everything in the kitchen. And can we really find a different home for this 4-5 gallon buckets of honey sitting in the kitchen underneath the table?
I decrystallize mine with like a heating pad that they use for pail buckets. I have a thermocouple tied to a thermostat, and then inside a Coleman cooler like one of the old Coleman coolers that's long.
Yep.
That you can pick up at a garage sale. Those are the ones. Those make great little heater buckets. And you set the temperature. I set mine to 103.
Yeah.
And then I just pull it out.
Set it and forget it.
I set it out. I pull it out in about 6 hours, and it goes from solid crystal to ready to eat.
I have a heated silicon mat bucket heater off of Amazon. Pretty expensive. I think less than $40. You can wrap it around a bucket. So it's got a thermostat on it, so you can dial in the temperature you want based on the dial. But the problem is, I found with it, is it goes, like when it wants to maintain the temperature, it goes all or nothing. So it's like maximum temp for like 10 seconds, and then it'll be off for whatever amount of time it thinks it needs to be off for that temperature. But when it needs to warm back up, it's like 100% on. And so it gets like uncomfortably hot. Like you didn't want to touch it hot.
Yours has a thermocouple on it too, though, right?
Yeah,
it
does.
A thermostat. So, but there's ones out there that don't. So people are listening that are saying, "Oh, well, this is a great idea. I'm going to do that." You can't. I would strongly suggest not getting ones that don't have a thermocouple.
Yeah, and this one, it has a dial in the front, and it does maintain the temperature roughly on the dial. So if I set it to like 100, 105, I'm fairly confident the stuff inside my bucket isn't overheating that. However, if the bucket doesn't have contents in the bucket, it will get hot enough to melt the bucket. And this is from experience.
Yeah. So mine are not that hot.
Because it's got that weird cycle where it'll get super hot.
And then
but then there's not product. Like in my case, there was like a half a bucket of honey. The part of the bucket that had the honey in it did fine. The empty part of the bucket melted because there wasn't any material to draw the heat away from the bucket quick enough. And so the pad got really, really hot, but it's only really, really hot for like 10 or 15 seconds, and then it shuts off to maintain that thermostat temperature. That's just probably a function of the $40 inexpensive deal off of Amazon.
I think mine with my kit totally put together was like $120.
Yeah, so I'm sure more expensive versions might have a little bit better control over that, but at the same time, something's better than sticking my heated knife down in the bucket and just letting it sit there, which I have done in the years past too. So for everybody who's wondering, we're not going to have our normal around the yard and in the news segments because there's literally not much going on in the yard right now.
Randy Oliver, there's a hour-and-a-half YouTube video where Oliver goes over all of his experiments for the last year. So as far as in the news,
sort of a year-end wrap-up.
Year-end wrap-up. So far, it's interesting as far as in the news goes. That's worth a watch.
If you're new to the podcast, if you went back and listened to our last year's December podcast, we may have had a gift buying guide, and we're gonna go through that. I don't know that we're gonna mention. There might be some carryover items, so if you just got done listening to that episode, maybe there's some new stuff in here. Otherwise, thanks for listening to this episode. And
and speaking of listening to episodes, everyone's got their year-end wrap-up stuff.
Oh yeah,
and we had a couple people send us that we made their top 5 year-end wrap-up for most listened to podcasts, and man, I felt great. I got that. I got the first one of those, and I laughed. I thought it was a joke, and then I got like 2 more, and I felt pretty good. I sent them to Steve. And I was like, "Hey, we got." I
mean, we're no Joe Rogan here, right? So the fact that you got a half a dozen people sending this that were the most listened to podcast or in the top 5 most listened to hours on their podcast app.
Yeah, we just want to say thanks.
Yeah,
we enjoy doing this. I'm glad you're listening.
We're going to have a 2026 year coming up, a year 3. So if you're just getting into listening to us, there'll be plenty more to come. So for our 2026 gift buying guide, we have most of the things on our list we would classify as fairly inexpensive. This is probably in the under $30 or $40. Certainly some of this is $20 and under. If you have a kid or you are a kid and you're listening to this and you're looking for something for your parental unit that Beekeeps, there'll be some stuff on here for you guys. If you are a spouse, you have a spouse that's into beekeeping, there's going to be some stuff here for you. If you're looking for ideas of what to get a significant other that's just getting started, we'll have some stuff in here for you also. So all these options are here to come. I think we're going to start off the list with some of the most simple stuff. If you already have a beekeeper in your life and they have been beekeeping for a while, they will have gear that gets worn out. Your smoker will get worn out. Your suit will get torn and tattered. And so look at that equipment that they have, see if there's anything that's starting to get worn out, and buy a replacement. The nice thing about that is, they're already going to use it. We're not recommending that you go find the newest, cheapest version of it. If they're already using a Dayton smoker, probably get them another Dayton smoker. Don't go looking for your cheapest smoker.
I haven't tried the new electric smokers that they've got. That
I've not seen of these things.
Yes, it's a battery powered electric smoker that puffs out. It's like a vape pen thing.
Weird.
I haven't tried them. I don't plan on trying them because my smoker, although it's got 11 years on it and is held together by a bent nail, and the lid has to be routinely ground down in order to fit on, it still mostly works.
But like one of the items toward the bottom of our first page here is replacement leather or nitrile gloves. So that would fall into the category if they have a particular pair that they like to use or wear. Go ahead and get them a replacement of one of those.
Yeah, or the nitrile gloves that Steve and I use are just Harbor Freight gloves.
He gets his from Harbor Freight. I got some orange ones that are really mechanic
gloves-based
versions. They've got a little texture on them.
Yeah, mine are only used for beekeeping. Steve does turn some wrenches with his and works on the farm with his.
But both use cases, there are a thick mill nitrile glove as opposed to sort of just a
3 mil is what I would suggest. And
I think mine are 6 though.
Yours are thicker.
Yeah.
Do not get black ones.
I've had black ones. I don't know that I've found they are that much more excited about my black gloves.
They're not until you get into a hot hive. And the hot hives are.
But they're so much hotter on my hand. Like in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
My hands sweat so bad in those.
My hands sweat bad anyway in the blue ones that I have.
Yeah.
It's like I end up I'll get a small tear in them, and then I go and pull them off, and it's just
dripping.
Yeah, it's just water everywhere. They're still better than the leather ones. I would suggest anybody go with nitrile. If you're comfortable with leather, by all means go with leather. If you are comfortable going gloveless, by all means go gloveless.
If they don't already have an oxalic acid vaporizer, you can get fairly inexpensive ones on Amazon, and it is a great option for doing mite control.
Yeah, the other thing that you can do is look up how to do oxalic acid dribble. It's really not very hard. It does require a syringe. But if you put together a kit for somebody that shows some forethought, if you go to Randy Oliver's website, he has exactly what's required for a dribble, oxalic acid dribble, and that's also good. Not this time of year, but on a little bit warmer weather, it's good. Also, we did cover the smoker before. There's so many people that struggle lighting their smokers. A propane torch kit, I call them a propane torch kit.
Yeah, it's just...
He had an auto light kit, is what Steve called it or something.
Yeah, if you... In the soldering section at your local big box hardware store, there will be a couple of different propane soldering kits. The least expensive ones will be ones that you have to use a match, some sort of lighter to light. And then there are other ones that are a snap light, right? So you pull the button, push the button, and it'll trigger a spark, and it sort of auto lights. So
that's the one that I use.
Yep.
I love them, and they make lighting your smoker so much easier.
And they're relatively inexpensive. That's like a $30 or $40 item.
Yeah.
If you can buy a kit that comes with the propane, it's a little bit more expensive, but you can buy just the head by itself.
The kit with the propane, I think, is like $25. It's really not that bad.
If you've done some honey extraction, but you don't already have a honey refractometer, so that's a device that allows you to tell how much water content is in your honey. It's sort of a fun thing to play with when you're doing your honey extractions. They are fairly inexpensive. Again, this is an Amazon item probably.
Yep, and they're easy to adjust. I will say that there's 2 types out there. There's a honey and there's an alcohol one.
Yes.
So you can get one of each if you're trying to tell your spouse something, right? Hey, let's make some mead.
If you get the alcohol one, it will not work for honey because the scales are incompatible with each other. They're essentially the same tool. It's just the scales read differently in the little.
It doesn't go low enough
Yes.
for the alcohol.
If you use a bee brush around the yard, or you don't, and you've seen somebody use a bee brush and you thought it was cool, you can always pick up a bee brush, or Luke's favorite, a turkey feather.
Yeah, if you could just have a hunter in the family, the wing feathers work really well. The tail feathers are fine too, but the wing feathers work really well. It makes them less mad. It's just easier to move the bees with. And one turkey provides quite a few.
We've always talked about if you're out in the apiary, you need to be making notes. We talk about how we may make notes on lids and things, but they do actually sell honest-to-goodness apiary logbooks. There's a particular Right in the Rain brand that are typically found with the beekeeping stuff if you're at a local farm store. They're good. I don't know if I would fill all the information out on the thing, but at least it gives you something to take some notes on about what's going on in the yard.
Or if you're tech savvy or your beekeeper's tech savvy and you just take those, you can transfer that to a Google Drive and then a spreadsheet there, and that's where I keep my notes.
We generally do not recommend trying to do this on your phone. Sticky, propolis-covered hands and gloves and phones don't mix. So while a lot of people may have transitioned most of their note-taking and the rest of their life over to their phone, out in the bee yard is still probably best done with a paper and pencil.
I still use my phone, I will admit, and then I have alcohol washes, little wipes, and it takes the propolis off real nicely.
I'm paper and pencil. If you're a beekeeper that's taken a honey crop and you did not buy a honey extraction kit that included an electric uncapping knife, and perhaps you were just getting by on a standard kitchen knife or a non-heated uncapping knife, upgrading to the electric uncapping knife is a welcome upgrade.
It's a significant difference, and it's not that hard to use. They do get hot. I have melted through a plastic container that was sitting next to my uncapping area. So you do have to be careful. Be aware of them.
My uncapping tank is polycarbonate, and I have gotten into the habit of storing my knife in a certain way in my uncapping tank, and it is because the polycarbonate is ultra high temp plastic. It does not have a problem with the temperature of my knife. So
yeah, mine was a honey bucket that was full that was sitting next to the thing, and it did a small cut.
Neither of us are immune to melting buckets.
Yeah.
Melting buckets. Speaking of buckets, every beekeeper probably will make use of a good food grade bucket. If you're storing honey in it, that's one thing. I know both Luke and I use buckets to store smoker fuel in because we're both going out to outyards. And I know the first couple of years you just had an empty bucket riding around in the back of the SUV and would tip over and spill all of your smoker fuel everywhere, which is always fun to pick up. And then you discovered
the spin-on lids. So Menards has them. They sit right next to the buckets. It has a snap-on
base
collar, base, and then the lid spins on. I use it for all kinds of stuff now. So usually when I go to the store, if I pick up buckets, I just buy a couple of those too.
And the bucket's inexpensive, $3 to $5, and then the lid is fairly inexpensive, but about $20.
Yeah, make sure you're getting. They do have ones marked for food grade quality. They have ones that are not. Make sure you're grabbing the food grade ones.
If you're going to put honey in them, if you're not putting honey in them and you're just using them for totage.
I do it just to be safe because because we do the cutouts and I grab buckets and
I really think that they're all HDPE plastic. So, and when was the last time you saw a green pickle bucket at the fast food place, right? Just because the bucket's green. Menards, in case anybody knows, Menards has the Menards branded buckets are green, just like the pickle buckets, and they're all HPDE.
But the food grade ones are white.
If you're really on a budget, your local Sam's or Costco does get rid of their frosting buckets and food grade buckets. Any of your local bakeries will often have frosting buckets and buckets that pickles and things. Pickles may not be a great one because it does smell like pickles, but usually the frosting buckets will come clean and not leave residue. And they can be free or very inexpensive, only $1 or $2. We have listed fun themed beekeeper mugs, and that sort of also quickly spills over to the other fun beekeeper-themed items, ties, socks, clothing, T-shirts.
Bandanas. I use a bandana. It's not beekeeping themed, interestingly enough. I use one in the yard for when I'm soaked in sweat.
Sweat control.
Yeah, and then shirts. There's a couple of funny ones. I think the funniest one I've seen for a while is that I'm a beekeeper. If you see me running, try to keep up.
And, most of us beekeepers, we got good sense of humor, so we always enjoy a good T-shirt. Right adjacent to that, you can purchase a brand new item and have it engraved, custom engraved, or it will come engraved, or for the extra special upgrade, you can snag your significant other's existing cutting board or hive tool or some other smoker maybe, and sneakily heft that off to a local guy or a local person who is doing laser engraving, because there are plenty of those people in any given area, and you can have them custom laser engraved with names or slogans or nifty little beekeeping logos.
I like to have my apiary name on my tools and my stuff. I don't, but I'd like to.
And you have a laser engraver.
And I do. I have a laser engraver and I have a wood engraver. You can also actually have hives painted. Last year, Riverview Road Apiary with my niece won first place at the North American Honeybee Expo for best decorated hive.
The bees don't care if they're white or not. That's a common misconception, is you are actually free to paint your hive whatever color you want.
Yeah, and she painted this one was beautiful. It was a drive with a sunset and trees and stuff, and you can paint those yourself.
And again, if you're struggling for budget this year, maybe a great activity is to have the kids acquire a new bee box or sneak out to the apiary and take an existing box that's not being used and bring it inside, have the kids paint it up and present it to dad or mom. And I'm sure that they will love that. Kids will have a great time doing it. And every time it's out in the yard, they'll see that was something they had a hand in doing.
Yeah, colored handprints is something I've seen commonly. And that's a cool one, because as they get bigger, those handprints are not going to.
Circling back around to the smoker fuel is one of those things that you literally set on fire and burn. So you run out of. So you always need more. And I will admit that I have bought prepackaged smoker fuel, mostly to sort of test out what is available for prepackaged smoker fuel, so that I can speak intelligently when new beginners are like, oh, so I can just buy the XYZ on Amazon. I'll be like, yeah, that doesn't work so well.
Locally, because we do have some coniferous areas, you can just go grab a rake. Not right now because it's under snow, but you can grab a rake and rake up some, what do they call that? Pine straw. And pine straw works great.
Holy cow. I don't have access to a lot of pine straw. I did a bee pickup. I did a swarm capture at a guy's house that had pine straw on the back tree line, and I forgot my smoker fuel, and I went over there and stuffed I was like, oh, pine straw. Man, I stuffed that smoker full. Oh, man, it lit so nice. And it burnt. It smoked just this voluptuous, this voluminous, this white smoke. Just huge amounts of beautiful white smoke.
It doesn't last very long, but
it was great.
It is really good.
I use my go-to is burlap. We have a gentleman who acquires burlap bags from the local small-scale coffee roaster, who brings in bags of green coffee in burlap.
Yep.
And that coffee store sells their burlap for a couple bucks, so you can probably track one of those down in your area and acquire some burlap, cut it into strips.
My go-to is the pine shavings that people use for like pet beds, pet bedding. You can buy a huge block of that for
$8.
Yeah, cheap, and it burns well and it smokes for a long time once you get it going.
But that's when it goes back to that propane
blowtorch
torch to get things fired up in a hot minute. Rounding out the bottom of the inexpensive items, if you do not already have some sort of toolkit holder to walk down to the apiary, a bucket. We mentioned the buckets. Bucket Buddy is the commercial name of the little cloth tool organizer that'll hang off a bucket, although it could be a bucket caddy or a bucket boss.
Yeah, it hangs around the lip.
The Bucket Boss, I think, is the OG commercial brand. I'm sure there are plenty of Chinese knockoffs at this point. They work plenty well. It just gives you a place to organize some tools to go down to the the apiary and stay organized while you're down there.
You got to be careful with your smoker in there. Other than that, your hive tools, your markers, your queen clips, your all the other stuff that you put down. And
some smokers though have a little lip clip thing on them for clipping on the side of a box. If your smoker has one of those, they work well for clipping on the side of a bucket because they'll that wire mesh that surrounds the smoker. If you've got a smoker with a wire mesh surround.
Nope, I've got a full burn yourself.
Yeah, so smoker. The ones that got the wire mesh surround, they usually have the little clip on them, and then the standoff wire mesh keeps it away, and so it's a good option. If you are already doing beekeeping, but you currently aren't taking part in some of the ancillary beekeeping products, such as wax, getting your significant other beekeeper a wax crafting kit can be a nice nudge for them to try making some candles or some cosmetic problems, some lip balms or some...
There are so many of them out there, so many kits and so many wax candle molds. We have a bunch of them here. I've collected some through the years. Steve and I have a pile of them right now. And
I had some. They live
mostly here.
Yeah, well, I had some and you had some, and you were like, hey, I got my molds, and then you bought some wick and I had some wick, and we found it. We just threw it all together and we pass it back and forth as needed.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how many beekeepers have just buckets of wax and they don't do anything with it. And so you really just melt it down. One that didn't make our list, actually, and I'm thinking of it, is a wax melter. But melt it down, process it, and go through and make it into candles. It's super easy to make into candles. They're pretty.
You can do 100% beeswax, or you can buy some paraffin-based waxes
and mix it
to cut it. Typically, there are some benefits to that in terms of candle making process, for melt temperature, for the ability if you want to add scents or colors to it.
Yeah,
the paraffin waxes will hold that a little better than 100% beeswax.
And if you're worried about the wick size, the stores have.
Yep.
When you buy it, it'll say sizing wick for this should be XYZ, and there's a little bit of confusion on that. Like a wick 2/0 is not the same as some of the other wick sizes.
A number 2.
A number 2.
A 2/0 and a number 2 are two entirely different things.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of research that has to be done in there, but it's not too bad with the internet today.
Moving up in price, going back to one of the things we initially talked about with replacing existing equipment that they have that might be getting worn out, you also have the option to find some of their existing equipment and then try to find a more premium version of the same thing. So that could be a more premium hive tool or a more premium feeder.
Hive feeder. The hive feeder that I prefer is an in-frame feeder.
Yep.
With a ladder system. I don't like just being open. The bee sisters, in their eagerness to go drink nectar, water, honey water, sugar water, not honey water, sugar water, stand on their sisters' heads and hold them underwater, and they drown them, and then they go try to stand on them, and then they fall into the water and drown. So there's lots of drowning. They're not really good unless you have a ladder system in there.
Caps and ladders. So make sure if you're going to get a frame feeder, find one that says specifically with caps and ladders.
Yeah, which is little holes at the end, at the edge of them.
Moving up in price, you can always, of course, find your local either bee farm supply store that carries beekeeping equipment, or if you know your beekeeping significant other likes to order from one of the major suppliers, you can always call them up and get a gift certificate. You should call that out, although probably most people are used to buying gift cards and things these days. The other thing you can do is reach out to your local club and or area beekeepers and inquire about training sessions. That could be like a day with a beekeeper, or queen rearing classes, or if your significant other has talked about getting into beekeeping but haven't yet, then signing them up for a beginner beekeepers class, which will be typically the first month or two of 2026, are all good options.
Honey tasting events. So the 3 of these things we offer at Riverview Road Apiary. We do the day with the beekeeper, we do the honey tasting, and then Steve and I We'll probably, again, do the queen rearing course. It's already up on the website. If you're trying to learn how to do your own queen rearing, we will be teaching that, including with the tools that come along with that. Those are all things that are something you could sign up for, and great. They're experiences, and I personally really love experiences.
Those are probably going to be a little bit more expensive than some of the other stuff that we talked about. Those are probably in the 60 to 80 or more. I think our beginner beekeepers class is in the $100 range, and I think our queen rearing class is in the $200 range. But that comes with a bunch of equipment and full day out in the yard and lunch
and hands-on experience grafting.
Also, in the medium category, we haven't mentioned our bee suits or jackets because they can be kind of pricey. Again, that can be either an upgraded version of something they already have, or if they're just getting a little worn and tattered, just get the same thing.
One of my favorite things, and I read it online, there's a couple of ways you can get it, is the American Bee Journal, or there's another one out there called Bee Culture. They've both been around for a really long time. We will be talking about some stuff I've got coming up in bee culture, maybe in the next January, February timeframe. But yeah, those are, you can get them physical copies, or you can get the online version. The online version, at least for the American Bee Journal, actually will give you all past episodes too. And you can do it at 1-year subscriptions or 2-year subscriptions. And so that's something that has a lot of good information, has some really good writers, and is something that I refer to quite a bit. So in the high end, and something that we haven't tested, but I'm always interested in, is the hive monitoring scales. There's a couple of versions out there. I've not tried them. I'm really, really interested in them. I will probably try one this year, just to see what it looks like and see how the monitoring goes. Basically, it's a weight scale that you put underneath. We were looking at it before we started recording. You can put it in one end, or you can put it on both sides of the hive. It measures and records the weight throughout the day of the hive, so you can see them bringing in nectar and pollen, and or see them using it up through the winter. I think it's interesting just to be able to monitor. I'm guessing that you could probably monitor things going wrong. Now, if you've listened to all of our episodes before, you'll say, well, but Luke, you said that you're buying some in-hive monitoring kits for temperature and humidity.
Govee temperature?
Yeah, and I have those. They're sitting in a box right now. I need to put them in. I'm not going to put them in right now. I will put them in next year. But this is weight. This is something different. This is how much weight.
This was an external thing. You would think it would be kind of like a platform scale. You would just set the hive on, but it's not that large. It's just basically like a strip that you would set one end of the hive on, or one side of the hive on, and it constantly measures the weight that's sitting on it. And from that, you can infer a lot of data. The version we were looking at earlier, they had sort of a simple plan that I think was local only, so you had to be in the vicinity of your hives with the app on your phone to download the data. And then they also had a pay per month version where it will upload the data to the cloud, and then you can view it in the app wherever you might be. So these are pretty data-driven tools. If your person you're considering this for likes to look at data, this is certainly something that would give them a ton of data to look at. It's always a question of a lot of these data gathering tools, health trackers and stuff. People like the idea of them, but then they never actually go back and look at the data. So then you have to sort of give a real strong look at the value that's being added if you're not ever reviewing the data. You have it, but if you're never ever looking at it or making any decisions based on it, then is it really doing anything for you? Other than the fact that it can be an interesting talking point to go back and say, oh, look, my hive weighed 400 pounds, and going into winter, it weighs 80 pounds.
It would be neat to see when the flow is on in different areas, because I'm in so many different areas. It'd be nice to have 5 of them, and then be able to go around and see, okay, an hour north of here, there's no flow. Across the river in Spring Bay, there's flow for nectar.
I feel like there's an entire episode here to talk about using these and looking at the data that they generate because I don't think, off the top of my head, I don't think the data it generates would be that. You could look at the data and say, this is when this is happening. Because I think the increase in brood size is enough to add weight, that you would see an increase in weight not associated with actually, like, you might see an increase in weight and you would go out there and pull frames and not see any fresh nectar. And you'd be like, hey, where's my flow? I don't have any fresh nectar. And it's just the fact that they're laying and growing
and consuming
brood, right? And so the total number of mass is growing in the hive, but yet it's not actual flow. And so I think it would actually take a season, maybe two, of looking at the data and correlating this data with my observations to say, hey, this is what it looks like when they have brood growth. This is what it looks like when they have nectar gathering. This is what it looks like when they dry down into honey.
Yeah, this is probably a whole episode. You're right. And it'd be neat to have.
And if that sounds interesting to you, we encourage you to go out there and look at some of these systems. They're not inexpensive.
No, they're $250 per system.
There's some investment there, and again, my note about making sure you're going to make use of it, I think, is key there, as opposed to just going out and like, oh, honey, I got this for you, and then they never use it, and that's always disappointing for both the person purchasing it and the person who's got it sitting on a shelf and
never using it,
looking at it and going, oh, I need to get that out there, and then it just never happens. Another add-on for Fancy Hive Tool, you have a fancy tool belt, but it's not a tool belt, but it's a tool belt.
It's a tool belt. It's the Canadian Beekeeper makes it, and it is a magnet. It has a tool pocket on it. I admittedly have the tool pocket taken off into a box because I only use it for a marker, and it has like 4 pockets in there, and you really have to soak it in leather to get it loosened up. But the tool belt with the magnet portion on it, I use that all the time. So if you have more than 10 hives, that is awesome because you're sitting there working the hive, and I used to balance the hive tool on the edge of the hive as I'm pulling frames, and I would inevitably knock it to the ground. And now it took me a good week or two to get to second nature to snap it to my tool belt.
But it's also funny to watch him work hives when he doesn't have it on because he's always reaching to his side where he thinks the thing either to stick the hive tool there and it doesn't stick and it falls on the ground, or he reaches for it and it's not there and he doesn't understand why it's not there. So equally funny either way.
Yeah. But it's really good. I like them, and I actually have somebody locally working on them. There's a leather worker in the Peoria Mall, the old mall, if you're local to here. And she's working on a belt, and her husband is working on the magnet portion. So
if you're handy, you could probably fabric cobble your own together out of a leather belt, and they sell some rare earth magnets that are intended to be screwed to a surface.
Yeah.
And you stick tools to them or stuff like that. And the ones I have are fairly small. They're only about a half-inch wide and about 2 inches long.
It's about perfect.
And they have 2 holes in either end for some screws. And they are super strong.
Yeah.
But if you were to take some leather rivets and rivet one of those to the outside of a leather belt, you could probably make a pretty good stand-in for the specific item that you would normally have to get directly from Canadian Beekeeper if he still has it on their website.
Last I checked, he did. His has a fancy wooden holder portion of it too, but what Steve's describing probably would work. You may have to have, depending on how much around the middle your beekeeper has, you might have to have a little bit of a standoff in order to keep it from constantly being knocked off when it's on your hip.
Well, and remember, sizing the belt for the person when they're wearing pants is not the same size as, because this is usually worn on the exterior of your suit.
Yeah, I wear it
so you
like
can get to it.
I use mine at a slight angle, like a gunslinger slung low gun, because that's about the right height for me to grab.
So if you're sizing one of these, keep that in mind. It'll probably go on the outside, so you're not trying to fish underneath your suit for it. As an experiment, I threw a couple of those rare earth magnets in my pocket of my suit, and then I could just stick my hive tool to the side of my pocket, which worked really well. However, there was sort of there's a magnet frequency, a magnet strength issue where if they're not strong enough, the magnet won't stick. The hive tool won't stick sufficiently through either the mesh pocket or, in my case, the cloth pocket. Mm-hmm. And then if they're too strong, the hive tool sticks really well, and it doesn't come off. And the problem is it doesn't come off. So then you're pulling on the side of on the tool to get the suit to get it to come off the pocket, and it's like pulling your entire suit with it until it stretched way back out, and then it finally lets go. And it in my head, it was going to work a lot better. It was going to work much like your little tool belt version, and the reality was the magnet sticky force I couldn't get balanced well.
Yeah, the tool belt is really nice. There's clearly been some thought put into that. So
I don't have one, but I just sort of set my hive tool on my nearest hive, and I typically
misplace them.
I have a few, and then we get out to be doing bee cutouts, and I'm like, hey, where's the hive tool? And you can give me the one with the little thumb that hangs off the end, and it's always in my way.
Mine currently is still in the church somewhere.
Oh, did the contractor guy not get it to you?
Never got it back to me. So oh well.
Did you go by there and see if they finished up the roof project?
No, I should go look.
The last item on our list, at the probably most expensive item on our list, is additional nukes or hive setups. So if your existing beekeeper has talked about expanding for 2026, you can always buy them full sets of gear, and or if you have a significant other that's talked about getting into beekeeping and they still have not yet bought their beginner set, their beginner kit, then this is the great time to purchase that beginner kit. These are pretty pricey. Those, like a beginner kit from one of the major suppliers is going to be in the like $600 to $800 range. And so we would certainly hope that you're in good communication with the person you're purchasing this for. That's a significant investment for them not to end up making use of it. So hopefully they're clear that this is something that they really want to do for 2026.
There is some resale market out there, but they're not going to get the same price out of it. Most of them, I don't know if they'd let you return it or not. Be very clear on, I'd like to get you this, and it may require some of their input in order to do that.
Also, if they're an existing beekeeper and they've talked about wanting to make expansions for 26, and simply going to their supplier and ordering a case of 5 more hives or something and having that sit underneath the tree is always going to be welcome.
Right. Absolutely.
I would say it's free equipment, but if you're in a shared household, like, it's going to show up on the Visa bill either way.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Toward the end of the show, we usually do a segment about questions. I think you had somebody call in with a question about how to buy a bee kit for their elderly beekeeper.
I think grandpa. They didn't give us an age, and in my head, grandpa means
80-year-old.
Real, yeah. But I was reminded in the beginning of this, as Steve and I were talking,
that you could be
50 years old.
That you could be a 50-year-old grandpa with a 10-year-old grandson that was wanting to get you a beekeeping kit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's us.
That's us. Yeah, so they asked, what would I do for a starting beekeeping kit? And they had $400 for a budget, and I didn't have an age range for the grandfather parent figure. So what I said was, if they are in good shape and they don't mind lifting things, then a 10-frame setup is probably the correct route to go. If they are not in good shape and have a bad back, then a 10-frame setup can get really heavy really quick, and an 8-frame setup is way easier to move around.
I don't know about way easier. It's 2 frames less.
It's 2 frames less. It depends on if you go mediums or not.
I think 8-frame mediums is probably where you have to be if you want to use way less.
And location matters. Illinois, 8-frame mediums. I don't know how well that would work. I know that there's people that do it.
You're gonna have quite the high stack of equipment, or you're gonna have to do a lot of management.
Yeah, or a lot of management. What ended up happening is that they wanted to buy one of the kits that comes from one of the not box stores, but Data,
like a Data
Hilco,
or a Man Lake or something.
Man Lake, yeah. They wanted to buy one of those kits. There's a lot in that kit that I personally don't agree with, and it drives up the price. The leather gloves are, I have so many pairs of leather gloves from people that have stopped beekeeping that drop them off.
It seems one of the things that are always left over are the leather gloves.
The leather gloves, they're not great. I wouldn't get them. And if you have a budget of $400,
$400 is going to be a challenge to get like 2 deeps, all the frames, and a smoker and a veil, right? Because that's sort of like the minimum viable product,
right?
Right. You can probably go and set it on some cinder blocks. You don't need a fancy stand, but to get top, bottom, inner cover, 2 deeps and 20 frames, a smoker and a veil. You're
over 400.
You're gonna need to be shopping some real bargain, like a Vivor or something like that to get into that price.
And I'm not a big fan of the Vivor setup. I know that there are some things out there. The other thing you need to consider is: are you going to paint it, or is this going to come wax dipped?
I think if you're really trying to stick to that budget, you're going to need to go with all unassembled kits, all unassembled frames, and you probably need to forego foundation, right? That $40, $2 is a piece of foundation times 20 pieces of foundation. That's going to add up. So you really need to do starter strips or something like that.
Realistically, it's 30 pieces of foundation, right? Because it's 2 mediums and a deep. Or sorry, 2 deeps and a medium.
2 deeps to get started, but you're gonna need a medium sooner or later. But
it's gonna be that first year. It's the number of calls I've got.
But you can have Grandpa pick that up on his dime.
That's true.
After he gets into it, right?
So for Grandpa, I would say have him buy his own suit. He needs to try it on and be comfortable with it. Smoker is a smoker, but get one of the nice ones. My preference of smokers is Dedant, and then Hilco makes a really nice smoker, both of them. I still have my original smoker is my Dedant one.
Same.
And then the blowtorch is I told them about, but realistically, I think I priced it all out, and I could get a bottom board, a lid, and 2 deeps and a medium with frames if you order them as a kit.
Unassembled or as a kit?
As a kit from Hilco, and it was like $400 and change. Yeah, I ignored the inner cover because I don't like inner covers.
But usually if you're buying a kit, it's going to come with that.
So no, this was me putting together a kit of knowing what to buy. So I did a bottom board. I did a solid bottom board because people don't know. I did a telescoping cover because a migratory cover, which misses the sides, is pretty difficult for new people to mess with. And I had the rest of it laid out. You're not going to get bees at that price because a nuke of bees is $200. They were writing me from Missouri. I told them, hey, go find your local Missouri guy, find a reputable bee dealer there, and use them.
Quick Google on Amazon. You can get a single deep with smoker and hive tool and veil, and just under $200.
Right.
So to add, you're going to have to add some woodenware to that. But in terms of putting a box underneath a tree for Grandpa to open, technically you could get it done for less than $400.
But for me, I like quality equipment, and so the stuff that you're going to get on Amazon is probably not your highest quality equipment. Now, you don't have to go. There are different qualities of wood, and Steve would have to tell me about those. But basically, there's different price points.
So if you look in Dayton, I believe the lowest quality is what they call commercial, and it's going to have the most knots. And then I think they have it's essentially good, better, best, right? And good is commercial, and then there's your common, I believe, is what they call it, and that's going to have mostly knot free, but I think it still have some what they call closed knots, so they're not open knots. And then they have their best, which is going to be like clear wood, and that's going to be the most cost. And the difference between the commercial grade and the best grade is about 50%. So if you're spending $100 for one, it's going to be $150 for the best version.
And personally, for me, the cheapest version for that is fine. The ones that I don't like are the hives that show they're like, I think they're Beaver, and they come like pre-stained / painted, and that staining will come off first year. I have 3 customers that bought their own hives, and that stain, all 3 had the stain. It's supposed to be dipped wax. It doesn't peel like dipped wax, but it all comes off first year.
The ones I bought that were purchased as Vivor kits, they are still colored the same way that they started out the first spring.
Okay.
But again, it's a weird. It's not a dip that I know. It's something China weird. The bees seem to work in it fine, but the quality of the woodenware, the corners are pulled. I mean, I could still keep bees in it, but
if you're new to beekeeping, it's probably not going to hurt anything by having the cheap kit. If they're not new to beekeeping, for this particular question, I pointed them towards pre-dipped, pre-assembled. Grandpa can go out and put everything out there and set it up. Doesn't have to know how to put frames together because, believe it or not, there are wrong ways to put frames together. Right? If you're not cross-pinning the bottom, if you're not cross-pinning the top so that when you yank on it with a hive tool, it doesn't just come apart.
You will pull them apart.
You will pull them apart. And so there are mistakes that are made in manufacturing stuff, in your own self-manufacturing of stuff, that can be a problem. I know that there are people that don't like putting their hives together, don't like screwing them together because they're out of square, right? Not everyone got to grow up playing with drills or nails and hammers. And so putting something together square can be a little more difficult than you'd expect. So there's really a lot of variation there, right? Like in everything in beekeeping, the answer is not always yes or no. It's often it depends.
There's also an option hanging around there if they are, in fact, on the more elderly and side of things, and they are struggling with arthritis or lifting. The horizontal hive is really an option there that a lot of older beekeepers that can't do the lifting anymore are moving to. The cost to entry of those is probably not the $400 price point because it's sort of an all-in-one deal, but there are other options out there other than your standard 10-frame Langstroths that do make good alternatives if they want to get into beekeeping and you got a little bit more budget.
For those, there are different frame types that will fit in those. Please don't get the custom weird frames for those because frames do wear out. Get the ones that have a standard Langstroth frame.
Standard deep,
standard medium, whatever you're going to use in them. Get those, the ones that can use those.
I think there's a pretty standard rectangular, I think it's 40 to 50 frames long. So it's 20 to 30 frames long. So it's a little over the size of a double deep.
There's some really beautiful ones that the frames mesh up next to each other and it like seals off the bee area when you work them. They need to have a follow board in there. There's a bunch of things that they need.
But if you're buying a kit, it's going to come with all that. It's just understand that you probably need to, if they haven't been beekeeping before, certainly also line up a mentor who has experience in horizontal beekeeping because there are some differences that are unique with horizontal hives that are good to have a mentor that has experience with that versus just working standard vertical Langstroths that everybody knows or everybody's used to seeing on the side of the road. And with that, I think that wraps up 2026 Beekeeping Buddies podcast. We appreciate everybody hanging in there all year. If you made it to this point in the podcast, we appreciate it. Remember, we do have a Patreon, and if anybody would like to support Beekeeping Buddies going forward in the future in 2026, our prices to host and maintain our podcast are going up. We would always love to have some support there. If you are a person who has products and you want us to review those, reach out. We're happy to pull those in the winter months and take a look at those and make sure that we do some reviews of those and have that available for people who are looking to purchase new equipment in the spring of 2026. Appreciate everybody listening to this point in the podcast. And remember, every beekeeper needs a buddy. We hope you found one of yours right here.